Look, this is obviously a very important panel to discuss the universality and indivisibility of the human rights regime as we know it. And it really goes to the essence and to the fundamentals of what we are talking about. Because, you know, when we hear about the universality and the indivisibility, what does it actually mean in today's world? And what are the successes that we have seen over many years, but also what are the failures and what can we learn from them so that we can actually do so much better in the future, in the next 25 years, if you like. So I would like to start with Karmen Ramírez. And when I met indigenous leaders in many different parts of the world, they always tell me about their feeling of exclusion.
And perhaps I can continue in Spanish. I would be very interested in knowing from you, what does universality of human rights mean to you as an indigenous leader?
Aló. Bueno. Hamayahya wayu karirwa ota arihuna karirwa. Taniria Karmen Ramírez Boscan, reinta ya wayu pina yutoro Maico, La Guajira, Colombia. Heotaya. Un pequeño saludo.
So I've just brought a greeting to the High Commissioner in my traditional language, Yayuna, and these are greetings for everyone who is here today, fellow members on the panel, but all participants as well. All of these issues remain extremely important for all of us. Even if the Universal Declaration of Human Rights were to be entirely applied in all countries and states, without even needing to be transposed into national legislation, well, if that really were to happen, then we truly would be living in a different world. There are very many challenges for indigenous peoples at the moment, particularly because many of our laws and our customs remain a challenge too. Grandmothers in my part of the world always say that humanity is not a rock, and yet even rocks change over time. But humanity does not change over time. The good things that we have within indigenous communities need strengthening. But the majority society also has this narrative that indigenous people can save the world. And to some extent we are, because we have the traditional knowledge to bring this about. And yet we have to make changes within our own communities too. We have to amend some of the practices that we have that are not fit to ensure that we survive and develop over time. We need to think about protection, and we always have to have human rights underpinning us. I always talk about the eradication of practices which lead to violence and which lead to human rights violations. We could, for example, mention female genital mutilation. We could mention other challenges, such as practices of blood revenge and revenge through other violent means. We have the possibility of making these changes today and use the Universal Declaration. For the vast majority of peoples, we need to protect Mother Earth. And obviously we have our own indigenous words for Mother Earth. Thank you very much. That's very interesting, because you've raised this question of the two parallel legal systems. So what does the declaration mean and resonate with you, given that you're aware of the challenges that can exist with these two systems? Well, yes, precisely. That's what I was mentioning, because customary law is not universal law. We have a universal declaration here, which leads us to think that it has primacy over all other laws and that it is important for all human beings. I think one of the challenges that we face as indigenous peoples is to marry our own laws with this understanding of the respect of human rights. We entirely agree that there can be no violation of the Universal Declaration by anyone in the world, and everyone has to safeguard these rights. I would simply like to raise the issue that today, in a globalized world, in a world where people want to move freely, then we also need to provide protection for all peoples, the Yaoun people, a migrant people that was born in a frontier region between Colombia and Venezuela. We also need to have the universal right of free movement and dual nationality, for example. Thank you very much. This dialogue is very important, and I think it shows how important inclusion is.